And we have joining us via Skype a multi-sectoral professional with about 30 years experience in oil and gas trading, Ronke Onadeko. It's good to have you join us this morning on the program. Now, one of the first questions I'll ask you is, where do we stand as a country on the OPEC Plus deal? How vulnerable are we to the variables of this market?
First and foremost, the most important thing for Nigerians to understand is that the natural resource we have in both gas and oil are for national development. It's not oil for oil, but oil for people, oil for development in terms of infrastructure, education. So it's something very holistic. Nigeria is at a point where we are looking at the oil industry as an industry for a few people, and very few Nigerians buy into the idea of following what's going on, understanding what's going on, and lending a voice to what is very important. We're a member of OPEC, and we have rules we have to abide by. We need to push output out so that we get the volumes necessary, because we're working on a budget that needs a particular amount of money, and most of the money that goes towards our budget and building our nation comes from oil sales and gas sales. So when you push the numbers as it is now, you are likely to get higher value inputs into the country's finances. However, the value of crude has dropped significantly based on where it was 2, 3, 4 years ago. And because of this reason, we find out that if we multiply what we're producing by the current price of crude oil on the international market, we find out that we're falling short of where we need to be as a nation in terms of generating foreign exchange and revenues to power our economy. It's important also to mention that OPEC is not about Nigeria. It's about a holistic view of all the OPEC countries, what they're producing, and how the volumes they're producing affect the prices. If there's too much oil in the system, the prices dip and we all get less. If there's too little, it hikes up the price and then people are getting more. But finding that actual balance is really where we need to be, to lend our voice to make sure that they continue to tweak the pricing and the volumes to the point where it's beneficial and it's a win-win for both buyers and sellers and oil producers.
We've seen that this sector has contributed about 5% to according to the economy report we've said the last time. But if you look at how ready Nigeria is, do you think we're ready to move on to a non-oil economy with the rise in renewable energy sources?
Well, I'm of a different school of thought. The revolution of industrialization started with coal. Trains, rail, all those things, industry were powered with coal. Nigeria has a lot of natural resources: gas, oil, coal, and sunlight. We have to look at solar as well. And I do not see any reason why Nigeria as a nation cannot formulate its own policy independent of global policies. So I think we should exploit every single resource we have, both coal, oil, gas. Definitely go for the cleaner ones because of the benefits, the impact on the environment and all of that. I don't see any reason why we should exclude any of the natural resources that we've been given in terms of producing energy and developing our nation. Our nation needs development in so many areas. The first area for me is feeding the younger generation, the 0s to 7, making sure they have the good nutrition that puts them in a good position to benefit from good education. Because if you're not, nutritionally sound, you don't get the benefits of education. We won't be able to leverage on an educated population for the future. So there's the feeding of the young people, there's education, there's need for industrialization, there's need for infrastructure. So oil and gas really needs to look, we need so much. And we cannot rely on one aspect, such as renewable energies. We saw what happened when the pandemic started and the whole world was relying on fossil fuels. There was a huge gap that couldn't be filled. So why would we have seen that kind of scenario and now say, okay, everybody's moving to renewable energy, that's what we're going to do? We definitely need to pursue it. It should be part of our medium to long-term plans. But in the now, I think we should continue to focus on the gas, the oil, and definitely exploit the solar power that we have available.
Of course, talking about policies now, a lot of analysts will say that it's high time the government, of course, pass the PIB to ensure that we have that sector covered. What do you think is stalling that process?
I've followed the PIB for over 10 years, and it's unfortunate that we haven't had the kind of leadership who understand that the bedrock of our country and our nation is on one, generating sustainable revenue to develop the country in its entirety. So many things we're seeing now, the instability, the security issues, are because we don't have the requisite leadership that understand that developing the entire nation is necessary. And what we need to do that is educated people and the finances. Where are we going to get the finances from? From mostly oil and gas revenues and export of our raw materials. Until we pass the PIB, we're not going to be attractive enough to bring in foreign direct investments into the country to develop the oil and gas sector. Nigerian banks, Nigerian companies are doing a lot, but we don't have the depth in our banking system to fund sustainably long-term the kind of projects that we need to be getting involved in. The first thing that we've said, that was said last year, was that this is the decade for gas. This is Africa's decade for gas. This is Nigeria's decade for gas. Gas is under the earth. It needs money to get it out and to exploit it. So we need to bring in the skills, the finances, the equipment, whatever it's going to take for us to develop the gas sector. One that's prospecting, exploration, production, drying it out, storage, distributing it, and putting it into the various sectors, gas for power. We have a dearth of power supply in this country, not because we don't have what it takes to power this country, but we don't have the infrastructure and we don't have the focus. We're not focused on actually delivering, on putting gas in the right places. We can use gas to power vehicles, which would stop us from importing fossil fuels at the moment, because we don't have the right infrastructure when it comes to refineries. So if we went from liquid fuels to gas to power vehicles, that would help us stem the external flow of foreign exchange for buying, PMS, diesel, and all of that. Our industries can move to gas use. The homes can all move to gas use. Our generators can move to gas use. It's unending. And it's so clear to even a blind person that what we really need to do is pump our time, effort, and finances into developing the gas sector as quickly as possible so that we can start to leverage and develop. So even the raw materials we have that are in the hinterland, if you're powering your rail by gas, you can get those things into urban areas, into industrial areas, and start to process. You will create employment. It's a holistic thing. So gas is not for gas, as I said. Oil is not for oil, as I said. Oil is for nation developing. And our leaders need to begin to understand that they have the responsibility on delivering on this mandate.
I would like to take you up on that. Of course, the government has, in the past months, talked about the National Gas Expansion Program. But one thing some persons are concerned about is how sustainable is this, considering the risk involved?
I'm not quite sure what you understand by the risk involved, but gas is a natural resource. Nigeria is more gas-rich than oil-rich. So the main thing we need to be doing now is to start converting and having conversion plans from the mindset. We start from the mind of letting Nigerians know that we're not an oil country, we're a gas country, and we need to exploit the gas to make sure gas is, we can bring it out of the earth, we can process it, and we can pipe it to everywhere where it's needed. Filling stations, homes, industries, businesses, we can export gas. We're doing that in Nigerian LNG. One of the major things that we have done in this country successfully, project-wise, has been Nigerian LNG and the Indorama petrochemical plant. There are two gas projects, and they are the two best projects that Nigeria has developed on. That is so clear that that's the direction we need to be growing in.
Oil and gas
specializers. We need to be using the gas to make ethanol, to make fertilizers for farming. We need to export to Europe, to Asia. So, what exactly are we waiting for?
Oil and gas specialist Ronke Onadeko, thank you so much for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you very much for having me.